One afternoon, Paddington was making his way back to number 32 Windsor Gardens after doing the daily shopping when he stopped by a building site for a rest and a quick snack. As he did so, he happened to glance through a nearby knothole. Paddington liked knotholes, especially ones outside building sites. You never knew quite what to expect on the other side, and for once he wasn't disappointed. In fact, he was glad he was bending down, otherwise he might have fallen over backwards with surprise at the sight which met his eyes. The men weren't at all like the usual workmen. They were much too well dressed. But by the time he'd got his opera glasses out in order to take a closer look, they had disappeared. Paddington rubbed his eyes several times in order to make sure he wasn't dreaming, and then went on his way with a thoughtful expression on his face. It was all very mysterious, and it definitely needed investigating. Paddington stayed up late that night, writing the day's events down in his scrapbook and drawing a map of the area. After carefully marking in the spot where he'd seen the men burying the box, he added his special paw mark to show that it was genuine. And after setting his alarm clock, in order to make sure he was up bright and early, he climbed into bed. Soon, he was fast asleep. The next day, Paddington arrived on the building site in very good time indeed, and having made sure no one was watching, he peered down into the hole. But to his disappointment, there was nothing to be seen, and he felt very glad he'd brought a spade with him. The more he dug, the more disappointed he became. In fact, apart from a piece of an old plate, there was nothing to be found, and he was just about to stop for some much-needed breakfast when he was startled by a loud cry from somewhere nearby. "What's going on? What are you doing, Bear? That's my hole you're digging in." "I'm sorry about this, Sir Reginald. I can't think how it happened. I'll have you know this is Sir Reginald Barker, the archaeologist. He's famous for his digs." Paddington backed away. From the way Sir Reginald was jabbing his finger, he could quite see how he'd got his reputation. "Careful there. May I have a look at that, please?" "If you like, Sir Reginald," said Paddington, "but I'm afraid it's a bit old." "Old? Why, it must be early Roman if it's a day." "Early Roman?" exclaimed Paddington. "But it was fresh yesterday. Mrs. Bird wouldn't let me eat anything that old." "I'm not talking about your marmalade sandwich, Bear. I'm talking about this plate. It's just what we've been looking for. The missing piece to make up an almost perfect Roman dinner service made over 1,000 years ago. Sir Reginald and the country are grateful." "Fancy you digging up some Roman remains, Mr. Brown," said Mr. Gruber later that morning over their elevenses. "Sir Reginald said they'd been looking for it for weeks," said Paddington. "They'd given up because the builders were about to start work and they were going to bury a posterity box to mark the spot. That's what they were rehearsing yesterday." "A posterity box, Mr. Brown?" "It's a box with lots of different objects inside to show people in the future what life was like today," explained Paddington. "Sir Reginald said I could put something in myself as a reward, if I like." "How nice," said Mr. Gruber. "And at least it's cleared up the mystery for you. But a difficult task, knowing what to choose. You are welcome to anything you can see, although I'm afraid it is all antique." "Thank you very much, Mr. Gruber," said Paddington, "but I think I may leave one of my sandwiches. If they dig it up in 100 years' time, it'll probably be an even bigger mystery than the one I had to solve."